So the funniest part of this episode is where Finley basically says if they walk into the church that they're going to burn. That is probably a lot of fears in the LGBT community in terms of religion or organized religion, which is kind of sad, but for some reason it made me laugh. Guys, my name is Maria Park, and this is Approach to Nerd. And in this episode, we are reviewing episode 3 of the L Word Generation Q, entitled Lost Love. And so much happened in this episode, so I'm going to try to recap it as best as possible without going for 45 minutes. So let's start with Bet. So Bet's daughter, Angie, got into an altercation in school with another girl, a white girl who was very, very snooty, and basically said she saw her mother was kind of a slut on Twitter, and Angie punched her. So this kind of led into the fact that the girl in question that got hit only got a slap on the wrist, but Angie herself, looking completely black, even though I think Tina gave birth to her, so she's really biracial like me, she's darker, so she's always going to be viewed as black in society and was treated a lot worse than this girl was, and she was suspended. So it really made Bet mad, actually angrier than the fact that her daughter got suspended for hitting someone. She did give her the parental, you can't hit someone and you've got to play it safe and play it smart by the system because you are at a disadvantage. But the fact that they put that in the episode was pretty cool because, it's life. But it did also tie into the plot very well because, her mother is running for mayor and she had a debate on education that day. I believe it was that day. And so she was basically coming up with her platform on how she was going to handle getting more funding for public schools, but her daughter was in private school. So the fact that the timing of that was very beneficial for her campaign. Even though Bet doesn't like to use her daughter as a token, basically, in her campaign, it did work out in her favor. Daniela gave her some information on public schools, and Angie managed to convince her mother to allow her to go to a public school. So by the time she did the debate, she was on top of this guy, and it played out in her favor. So I thought that was very cool. Something else about Bet, though. At the end of the episode, we do see that she is still sleeping with Felicity. And we also learned during her lunch with Shane and Alice is that, it was in the bar scene where Bet comes and sees Shane, because Shane has purchased the bar at this point, that Tina actually fell in love with someone else and left her. So now we know what happened with Tina. So we learned in the second episode that Jen killed herself. So that's what happened with Jenny. Now we know that Tina fell in love with someone else. I don't know if she cheated or it was an attraction at work or whatever, but she left Bet for someone else. And they are co-parenting Angie. So yeah, they tied up those two loose ends, which are interesting. Now we just need Carmen. But whatever. So moving on. So let's move on to Danny. Danny has serious daddy issues. I mean, it's insane. So her father, after basically kicking her out for leaving the job and not really acknowledging her engagement in the last episode, left a voicemail saying, meet me for lunch. When she goes and meets him, he tells her, oh, I booked this exclusive hotel that me, you, and your fiance and her family can go take a tour of that I'm paying for your wedding. And when I first saw that scene, I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. And Danny does do the right thing this time. This time she's like, I have to run it by Sophie. So she does. And, Sophie's kind of like, she's a little hesitant. She's like, this is our wedding, not your dad's. What's going on? But, Danny's really excited. So she plays along. She brings her family. Well, when they're doing the tour of this very overpriced hotel ballroom, I think it's called the Gold Room is what they're going to be renting out, that basically holds 350 people, and the father's like, yeah, we're going to have probably more than that. Sophie's kind of overwhelmed, and she's like, well, where will we set up our food? My family's going to cook. And of course the person giving the tour says, well, we don't let outside vendors or our family bring food in, and we have an approved catering list. And she's like, huh. And so Sophie then says, so you've already put a deposit down on this place because she basically mentions that the place is booked 5 years in advance and he had to put a deposit down. And so she said, so when is our wedding? And he says May 10th. And it's like pretty much the father has taken control of this wedding, and he also wanted to pay for it and have it where he wanted it, so his friends and colleagues would be comfortable, meaning they wouldn't be somewhere that was beneath where he thinks him and his daughter should be. So he is looking down on Sophie and her family, and that is crazy, and it caused a lot of tension between Danny and Sophie, and to the point where they have a big conversation about it. It wasn't really a screaming match, but Danny says, I don't want to hurt my father, and Sophie's like, yeah, but you're hurting me. And so that's the last conversation they had. So there's a lot of trouble with these two, and it's all because of her dad. So yeah, I don't know if they're going to make it down the aisle at this rate, and there's only 8 episodes. We have 5 more left, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. So moving on to Micah. Micah and Jose have this like flirtation thing going. They had a date. They made out in the pool. They messed around. They were supposed to go on, I think it was an art date, like an art museum type date or some kind of art lecture. Well, last minute, Jose comes and cancels, and he says the reason is personal. Well, Micah gets his feelings hurt, and so Micah does apparently what he says later to Sophie when he tells her what happened. He does what he normally does, and he gets on Grindr, and he finds some random guy, and he has sex with him. The scene, too, was very, it was kind of like an intimate scene. And what I've noticed is they don't show a lot of, I guess, gay sex on TV. They do lesbian sex, but not when it's man on man, or in this case, trans male and male. And the male, which I'm assuming is gay, did make a comment saying, I've never been with a trans male before. What do I do? And then Micah just turns around and is like, let's go. And so, I love the way they played it out. It's just like the opening of the first episode where Sophie starts her period when they're having sex. So it's it's real. So I know, I like that, but poor Micah. Micah is all over the place, and really, I think Jose probably had something happen. It might have been something that he wasn't standing Micah up. It may have actually been something family related. He doesn't know, but he got in his feelings, and I guess instead of eating ice cream or getting drunk, he just screws people off of Grindr. So that's that. Okay, so let's move on to Shane. So Shane, as I said earlier, did buy the bar and is going to convert it back to a lesbian gay bar. And of course, there's 2 employees. There's Lena, the bartender, who is extremely attracted to Shane, and then her girlfriend Tess, who works, basically helps run the place. Tess is very excited to be able to run. She wants to have a VIP lounge. She has all these ideas. She's very, very excited, but she's also a little jealous because she kind of sees the way her girlfriend, Lena, is making eyes with Shane. Now, Shane, in her conversation with Bet, basically says she's still in love with her wife, but they have problems that are outside of them being in love with each other. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on in that marriage, but it's bad. Shane starts drinking and even texts her wife that I miss you, and I don't know what's going on with that. So I know the wife is going to be making an appearance sometime in this season, so I guess we'll find out more then. But for now, there was a comment, they were talking, and Bet kind of showed some disapproval that Shane is moving too fast, making decisions without, basically, while hurt, that she's not thinking through, buying the bar, impulsively. And of course, Alice is like, but you need to stay away from Lena, because Lena had accompanied Shane to the restaurant and was going to get a takeout order or whatever. And they both could see, Alice and Bet could both see that Lena was into Shane and wanted Shane. And so they kind of give Shane the look, and Alice is like, don't basically poop where you lie, whatever. Don't screw the girl, basically. And Bet's like, yeah. And Bet has a lot of experience with that because that's what she's done repeatedly in the original series and in this one. So they're both encouraging Shane not to get involved with Lena. And Lena has a girlfriend who happens to be the other employee, so it's not a good idea. But in a moment of weakness and not thinking clearly, and I guess horniness, Lena comes on to Shane and says, oh, me and Tess are over. We're not really working, blah, 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 blah. And they end up getting it on. And I'm like, oh, Shane, you're back from the original scene. You made so much progress, and now you're just completely digressing. So, yeah, I don't know how that's going to go down, but there's going to be a lot of drama between Tess, Lena, and Shane being the owner and them being the employees. Something's going to come out of that. So, yeah, especially if the wife comes back. That's going to be interesting. And I want Carmen. I really want Carmen. Please bring Carmen back in some capacity. Bring her back. But that's Shane. So they were moving on to Alice. Alice came up with the crazy idea, because her girlfriend Nat doesn't have any friends, because apparently in the divorce with Gigi, the ex-wife, Gigi, being the cool one, got all the friends. Well, Alice is like, well, Gigi misses you and you miss Gigi. You know, you were best friends before you were, wives, so why not you hang out together? Which is stupid. But she basically brings them together. They all go on an outing and they're like talking nonstop and giggling and laughing and reminiscing. And Alice is getting more and more and more jealous. Even Shane like points out, like, asks what's going on here, and she's like, I brought two best friends together, and he's like, yeah. She's like, no, you brought two ex-wives together. And so by the end of that evening, when they were all hanging out in the house around the table, and Gigi is still, I mean, it's really, really late, and she's still, having stories and laughing around with Nat. And Alice basically just says, oh, that's funny. Well, good night. Wasn't like, well, it's time for us to turn in. It was basically a key to get the heck out of this house. But when she leaves, Nat kind of looks at her and is like, see, that was awkward and weird, And I know that Alice only did it for Nat because she wanted Nat to have friends, because she doesn't have any friends. It's pretty sad. But I don't think Alice thought that through at all. So, yeah, that was a thing. And then we come to Finley. And Finley, the girl that Finley was dating, actually turns out to be a minister at this church called, I think it was MCC. And that's when we start learning that Finley has some problems with religion. So apparently Finley was raised Catholic, and some stuff went down with her family. More than likely, she got thrown out. And I think she did mention that in episode 1 or 2, when she was fixing up, I think it was 1, when she was building the furniture up for Shane and Shane's new house, that the family got rid of her when she came out. Well, they were Catholic. And so she hadn't been in the Catholic church since whatever went down with her family. She didn't even go to her grandfather's funeral. So she was very weirded out to be in bed with a minister, but she finds out in the weirdest way, because she, when they wake up in the morning, the girl's like, well, I have to go to church. So she's thinking she's a member, just dedicated, and is going on a Tuesday. And so she goes and tells Sophie about it at work, and Sophie's like, well, MCC is on my venue list. So they go check it out, and everyone's getting ready to sit down, and then they see the minister, and it's actually the girl that Finley's been seeing and sleeping with. So that's how she found out. And they were supposed to hang out, like, I think that evening, and it looked like she stood her up, and the minister let this really sweet, detailed, message, saying, I want to see you, but, I understand, and hopefully you can find your religion or whatever. And she basically read in the fact that Finley still is okay with religion. It's just that her religion brings back, I guess, memories of what happened with her family. That's what I'm speculating. And so it's hard for her. And she admits she had never been into a Catholic church since what went down. So she texts someone, and then she goes to a Catholic church, and then she breaks down, and it's the minister girl she's dating. And she goes and sits down, and they hold hands, and she just cries. And it's just so sad. It's just really, really sad. So yeah, I want to know more about Finley's backstory. I did read online, I think, that she used to be an Olympic swimmer or ex-Olympic swimmer. So I wonder what happened with that, because now she's like an executive assistant or PA for Alice's show. So I would love to know what happened with that. But yeah, I know they're going to flesh it out. They've been giving us a lot of content on a lot of characters very quickly. In just 3 episodes. So, and I think they're doing a really good job with the writing. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens next week. I haven't watched the preview for episode 4 yet, so I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I mean, these episodes have been rolling pretty quickly. But what stood out to me was the Tina leaving Bet. That was just crazy. Danny seeing a Felicity outside of Bet's hotel room, which means they have not, that stuff's still going on. And I don't know if Felicity has left the husband that brought it out into the open and they're separated and he's just angry, or they're divorced, or if they're still together and working it out. But Felicity is still very much having sex with Bet. And that's making Danny see Bet in another light. Because yes, she stands for a lot of the qualities that Danny wants in a mayor, but as a human being, she is seriously flawed, and she has a big problem with fidelity. So even though technically Bet's not in a relationship, she's still with a married woman, or almost divorced woman. I don't know how, but the woman that started the scandal, they're still sleeping with each other. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how Danny reacts with Bet too next week. So there's a lot. I mean, Danny's going to have a lot of issues. She's got to deal with her father. She's got to deal with how her fiance is unhappy with what's happening with their wedding. And she also has to deal with her disillusionment of Bet by her seeing Felicity go into her room. So yeah, I'm excited for what's coming up. But hey, I want to know what you guys think. So leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the nerd ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys. And if you have time, don't forget to check out some of these other videos.